grab a mic. There's one over there. And just tell us who you are as well, please.
My name is Anu. Can you guys hear me? My name is Anu. I've just moved to Delhi from Bangalore. I may not be understanding the technicalities correctly, so feel free to correct that as well. But from my understanding, if we haven't been using the already available open spectrums in the most efficient manner, why should we even be having this discussion about opening more spectrum channels?
I think that you'll probably find that not everyone on the panel agrees, have a common response. I mean, I would argue that you need to do both. I think definitely if bandwidth and the cost of bandwidth is a bottleneck, that is definitely something that needs to be dealt with. But I think using Wi-Fi, existing open spectrum more efficiently shouldn't prevent us from experimenting and exploring other options, because what we know about this universe we are working in is that demand for bandwidth and demand for connectivity increases all the time, and that to find solutions, and I think particularly last mile solutions that are a little bit more robust maybe and have more potential than Wi-Fi, than the existing Wi-Fi, is something that we should be looking at. And in South Africa, in Kenya, and in Scotland of all places, in Finland, people are running TV white space pilots because there are now devices that can detect whether television frequency is being used or not. And then that is used for internet bandwidth. And it's true those devices are still very expensive, but Wi-Fi devices were also expensive when we started using them, and they did come down quite quickly. So, but that's my response, but you'll get a different response, I'm sure.
One sentence. When we started working 5 years ago, you could deliver maybe 10 MB on a $30 device or a $100 device. You can now deliver 100 Mbps on a $50 device. So I'm not sure that stability is a problem with Wi-Fi, but
you would agree they are not mutually exclusive? Or you think we should prioritize increased use of Wi-Fi?
Not at all, not at all. It's just that I'm still confused because the title of the session was not dealing with spectrum. So I'm not a spectrum man.
It says open spectrum, unless I'm reading the wrong one. Just yes, you go ahead, and then we'll have the next question from the floor.
Ravina touched upon the point about equitable access, and when we are looking at the next billion people to connect to the net, we are also looking at a section of population globally which is not going to be able to afford, like Ms. Pun said, it's going to be expensive if you are looking at paid spectrum-based access, right? So if you have to have access more equitably available to a bigger section of the population, you have to have available open spectrum, more and more connectivity on that. And we all know that as a legacy, governments are prone not to allow usage of spectrum without getting paid for it in abundance, right? And we have seen the results of that as well. 3G spectrum sale in India, got the government a whole big chunk of money, but then where are the services today? Access is limited. People are not buying it, right? So that's a failure. 4G is another issue that happened right now. So we know what happens with the paid spectrum. So I think the way forward for us to go deeper in terms of penetration is to look at open spectrum, and that's the reason why I think we need to start working on white space and weightless spectrum that we're talking about, 700 megahertz and others, where we have to start lobbying with the government to allow more and more spectrum chunks to be available free of cost or without licenses. Okay, that's the only way we'll increase the scope of bandwidth in which we can serve more and more customers across the spectrum.
See, the first point, I would like to answer the question of the gentleman from Madhubani. See, it is a fact that the quality of service of ISPs in India is very bad. I'm living in Hyderabad, which is also one of the premier cities as far as IT is concerned. But unfortunately, it's always very bad. When I go home, my wife is complaining daily in the evening that what's the point in you being a special secretary there if you can't even make your own, connection run? So I have to look here and there and find places. So the option that I provided her, I have given her one more Tata Photon. Okay, this fails, you try this thing. If both of them fail, don't call me. So that issue is there. Second issue is what you raised, Anu. the utilization. My experience utilization, I'll say, because what you are starting in Nepal now, we had connectivity till the district level, and then from district to the revenue division level, and from there to the mandal level. Mandal, there's the tehsil level. There's a project from the government of India that is called State Wide Area Network. But believe me, not even 10 to 15% was getting utilized. That is why I raised the issue of content, because I mean, we are daily pushing files. It's not that we don't work, we do work, but nobody has got the time to think as to how to utilize the content. Okay, neither we have the time to think as to work out a business model by which somebody else can use the pipeline for at some cost or less cost, or maybe subsidizing cost or whatever. Nor are we having the content or the method of using it. So yes, when we have got dedicated networks which we are not using, so I am not, people sitting in the hall, maybe sitting on the panel, might be knowing about the percentage of utilization. I am not aware of it. I am not an expert on that. But first of all, yes, that has to be utilized. Second thing is, I do not understand, is money the only issue why the government does not open up, or is there some other issue also behind it?
Plenty of issues, but I think mostly it's a vested interest, because when you want to create a business, you want to pay for the spectrum and keep it with you. That's valuable, because it's...
How much money is it?
I mean, look at 60,000 crores. Look at for 3G, people, the service providers paid 60,000 crores. And where's that money gone? And it's public money that was paid out. I mean, it was not...
Like in India, we have education cess of 2%. Why can't we have a cess which can, service the connectivity for everyone?
It's a very interesting point the gentleman on my right just raised, and don't you think that would be rather regressive, because when you talk about connectivity and bandwidth, there are a lot of standalone ISPs who don't have margin to absorb that kind of tax. I mean, you levy a 4% tax on them and they're out of the market. And so on one hand, we are really talking about the last mile. On the other, we had proposals from the government which actually proposed certain levy on standalone ISPs. So what sort of comments from the experts on that sort of a move?
Mr. Singh, we just have at least somebody who hasn't asked a question yet, and then we'll come back.
So we already you're being charged money for that also. Every time you're paying your cell phone bill, there's a pretty good amount of money which goes under subsidiary obligation, under USO money, which is for basically building the rural networks, which we are not getting. So there's already a cess, don't allow to that, please.
And then you can just give the mic to that gentleman.
My name is Rohit Prasad from MDI Gurgaon. I have a question related to the question on which bands of spectrum are being thought of for open spectrum. Recently in the United States, there has been a move to allocate core bands of spectrum which have traditionally been used exclusively, to think of allocating them for shared use. And this move is being led by many device manufacturers like Google. So they are proposing a method of tiered access, right, where you've got first level access, which means that your access cannot be interfered with. Then you have a secondary level of access and so on, and each associated with its own charges. I wanted to check what are your views on this kind of a proposal, and that's what I want to ask.
Okay, who wants to go first? Ravi.
Just coming to Rohit, your question, I think there are a lot of debates on the issue. There's a lot of fear that there'll be interference, that there's a fear of security issues, there's a fear of interference, there's a fear of the economic model not working out. If I'm a telco, I've paid lots of money for something, I'm not sure how I want to divvy out the sharing part of it. So I think it's an overall look at the resource that we need. We can't just do piecemeal, so we might have some bands that are open, and I'm not advocating opening everything. I'm just saying that Even if we are building rural networks, like I know a lot of amazing people here have really spent a lot of sweat and blood in building these networks. But at some point, we did have, the ability to do that because of 2.4 being unlicensed. Otherwise, we'd be doing it, it would be illegal. So I think that we do need to understand that some policy concessions and some openings that allow a diversity of players. And I want to reiterate the idea to come to your question about business model. The business model for small and independent businesses, their ability to enter the market, to provide, to harness whatever is available, and if 2.4 is available and they can use it for Wi-Fi providing connectivity. At the same time, if business models are not sustainable, then that's a problem. So I think we really need to think through this in a way of social enterprise that works for the poor.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Yeah. I was gonna take off from that point on the social enterprises aspect of it. To that question that Anu had asked, I would have. I'm not sure if somebody can answer this in specifics, which is, she said if there was any additional spectrum that is being opened up, does it help? Is it advantageous to the people that are already using the existing spectrum? Is it going to bring down the costs? Because I again come from a demand perspective, and I'm going to say, it doesn't really matter the technicalities of which spectrum is opened up, what's the deal with it, or what's the cost that is. The cost is going to be the cost, and it's going to be the lowest cost, which is going into the rural communities. Now, given that lower cost base, are you able to generate enough demand? So over a course of time, you can allocate more spectrum, and then you can, in an incremental manner, go up the value chain by providing more services. And I think going back to the session topic, which Mikey had initiated before, suggested earlier, was for the communities. And I think at some level we need to come back and say, okay, all this open spectrum is, say, for the communities, which is rural communities or communities which do not have access to broadband or, these kind of facilities. Now, is that happening? If that is not happening within the existing spectrum, what are we going to do about it? And how can we make it worthwhile to actually do this entire effort of putting in a rural broadband infrastructure and putting in 30,000 crores, I don't know whose idea, but all these other things that we're talking about, I think, I just want to reiterate that, because we've been struggling with it for 2 years in Jharkhand, and we haven't had a solution on it, and it's not the prices. It's just that there are not enough people out there actually doing and building businesses which can take the cost of all of this. So I think that's one thing I would have in mind here.
So what I'd just like to say, somewhat in response to your question and your question, madam, the reason we need more spectrum is because if you live in an area where a lot of people are running networks, you have a thing called congestion. There's too many people using the same spectrum. Mikey said that it's a finite resource. There's only so much of it. If you have literally hundreds of people using the same frequency channels to broadcast information, there is congestion. Okay, you have issues with throughput, your speeds reduce, you have security. There's a whole bunch of issues that come out. So that's why you need Hello? Okay. There's this issue of congestion. So from a technical point of view, that's why we need more spectrum to be opened up. And it's finite, as I said, so there's only so much of it. The other question was whether to reduce the prices of the current systems. Short answer is no, because you are getting what you are getting. Having more spectrum perhaps doesn't matter to you in Ranchi because you may be only one of very few people broadcasting on the network. So there's no real direct relationship. But if you look at the global scenario, in urban centers perhaps, or where people are running multiple networks over the same channels or similar or overlapping channels, there is an issue. So that's, I think, what it addresses.
Yeah, again, I think the definition, the differentiation between urban and rural is crucial. I just wanted to quickly comment on what you were saying. I forgot your name, I'm sorry. Rohit. What you exemplified in your question is exactly the ingenious use of existing bandwidth. So going back to the comment I made, it's a finite resource. Can we be more efficient with this finite resource? So I think what you did actually is you gave an example. And I think that's where we need to head. And I repeat again that our ability now to deliver 100 Mbps or even a gigabyte on a 2.4 link was not there 5 years ago. We are now in a position where even with the lousy 3 channels that we have, considering that there are no bastards out there and there are plenty of them trying to, broadcast louder and shout louder, there's a lot of scope. So maybe we can add a few channels to the 5.8. For example, in India, there's a limitation on the number of channels we can use in 5.8. So worth it. And just a last comment, I think maybe if we have a little bit more time, at least by the way, I'm a rural ISP. My name is Michael. I'm Jaldi. I forgot to say. So I'm incestuous with many of the people here. Only in one sense, though, not in the other sense. I hope, right, Mahesh? But I think that what's emerging here in a way is that, okay, spectrum is extremely important. What are the other things that are extremely important? Maybe we can put a little time. Yeah, sorry.
Let's do that. We also have 20 minutes left. So let's ask the panel to use this remaining time to respond to that question. The title of the session was Empowering Communities Through Open Media Access, Wireless for Communities and Open Spectrum. So we've talked about a few of the things that need to be done, but what else would you like to see happen for this empowerment to take place? Who wants to start?
Okay, I just want to, share a story when I was young. In the English textbook, there was, it was written like with a picture of a bus, We used, the teachers used to teach us, this is a bus. But we were living in far away in the mountain area, we had never seen how a bus looks like. And the teachers used to say, okay, you can use this bus to travel from one place to another place. But we had no idea how it feels like to ride on a bus. The same thing is true with these, computers and the internet. And many people and many students, in most of these rural areas of Nepal or India or wherever, they have learned about the computer in the book. They have seen the picture of the computer in the book. They have learned that you can use the computer to do several things and to see the internet, but they have never gotten chance to use it. So in order to reach those people, this open spectrum is very important, and also because it will be cheaper to reach these people using the open spectrum, like through the highway, this fiber optic highway, to the end of this, panchayat or, wherever. Then after that, this open spectrum will be able to, reach the people in the last mile, the villages. So that's why, in order to empower these people, the 70% or 80% of people living in the rural areas, it is, necessary to reach them first. To teach them how to use computers, not only teach in the textbook, showing the pictures, but, letting them to use the computers, the internet, in the real world. So unless we do that, we are not going to empower the people living in the rural areas or in the rural communities, and they are going to be always behind with their counterparts living in the urban areas.